She's just a waitress until he offers $5 million for a year of her life. Jennifer Thompson had been working at the Southern Comfort restaurant for 3 years when her life completely changed on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. Businessman Richard Montgomery was sitting at his usual table, but this time he didn't just want the daily special. "I need to talk to you after your shift," he said, handing her a business card as she jotted down his order. Jennifer stared in confusion at the white card with gold lettering. "It's about a job offer." Jennifer felt her heart race. At 28, she was the sole provider for her sick mother and teenage son. Any opportunity to improve their lives would be welcome. What she didn't know was that Richard Montgomery, CEO of one of Atlanta's largest construction companies, was about to make an offer that would change everything. The restaurant was busy that afternoon. The smell of southern beans and freshly baked cheese rolls filled the cozy space decorated in shades of pink and red. Jennifer balanced plates while serving customers with her signature smile, but her mind kept wandering to the conversation she'd have later. Richard watched her every move, the way she treated everyone with kindness, how she stayed calm even during the busiest moments. There was something special about that woman in her floral apron and aqua blue blouse, something beyond her delicate appearance. When the clock struck 6, Jennifer took off her apron and walked to the table where Richard was still waiting. He sipped coffee while scrolling through his phone, dressed in his usual impeccable grey suit. "Have a seat, please." He gestured to the chair across from him. "What I'm about to propose might sound strange, but I ask that you hear me out." Jennifer adjusted the bun holding her brown hair and sat down cautiously. Her hands trembled, slightly under the table. "I need someone for a very specific job," Richard began, his dark eyes fixed on hers. "Someone with your qualities. I'm willing to pay $5 million for 1 year of your time." The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer blinked several times, sure she'd misheard. $5 million? Her voice came out in a whisper. "Mr. Richard, I don't understand. What kind of job?" Richard leaned forward, interlacing his fingers on the table. "My mother, Mrs. Eleanor, has advanced Alzheimer's. She lives in the past, believing it's still 1985. Every day she waits for her best friend, Margaret, to arrive for coffee. Margaret passed away 20 years ago." Jennifer felt a pang in her chest. She knew the pain of watching a loved one slip away into the fog of memory. "You look just like her when she was young," Richard continued. "The same smile, the same gentle manner. I've tried hiring actresses, but my mother always notices. With you, it's different. She smiles when you serve her table. You want me to pretend to be her friend?" Jennifer tried to process the idea. "I want you to live in our home, be her companion, talk, have coffee, watch soap operas together, simple things that make her happy. In return, besides the payment, you'll have everything you need to care for your family." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Jennifer stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "This is crazy. You can't just buy a year of my life like that." "I'm not buying your life," Richard corrected calmly. "I'm offering an opportunity. Think of your mother, your son. What could you do with that money?" The words hit Jennifer like a punch. Her mother, Mrs. Carroll, needed a kidney transplant. The Medicare waiting list was endless and private treatment was beyond any dream. Her son Michael was brilliant, but she could barely afford public school, let alone the medical school prep course he so desperately wanted. "I need to think," she murmured, picking up the card still on the table. "Of course. But I need an answer by Monday. My mother is getting worse every day." Jennifer left the restaurant with shaky legs. The bus ride home had never felt so long. She watched the city pass by the window, the neighborhoods growing simpler as they moved away from downtown. Her house, a modest 2-bedroom in West Side, appeared at the usual corner. "Mom, I'm home," she announced as she walked in. Mrs. Carroll was lying on the couch connected to the portable dialysis machine that consumed much of Jennifer's paycheck. Michael was studying at the kitchen table, borrowed library books spread across the surface. "How was your day, dear?" Her mother's weak voice barely rose above the machine's noise. "Fine, Mom. Fine," Jennifer lied, kissing her forehead. That night she couldn't sleep. $5 million danced in her mind. She could pay for her mother's transplant, her son's college, buy a decent home. But at what cost? Spending a year pretending to be someone else, living a lie away from her family. The next day the restaurant felt different. Every wealthy customer who walked in made Jennifer think of the chasm separating her reality from theirs. Richard didn't show up, but his absence weighed heavier than his presence. "Jennifer, table 7 is calling," Jack the cook informed her. She shook her head, pushing the thoughts away, and went to attend. It was Mrs. Eleanor, accompanied by a nurse. The white-haired woman, perfectly coiffed, smiled when she saw her. "Margaret, so good to see you, dear," she exclaimed, reaching out her hands. Jennifer froze. The nurse discreetly gestured for her to play along. With a tight heart, Jennifer held the woman's fragile hands. "Hi, Mrs. Eleanor, how are you?" "Better now that you're here. Sit with me. Let's talk like we used to." Jennifer glanced around. Her manager nodded approvingly. She sat down and for 20 minutes listened to stories of a past she hadn't lived, responding with smiles and vague nods. When Mrs. Eleanor left, she left a $500 tip. "It's always like this," the nurse whispered before leaving. "She comes here looking for her friend. Her son is desperate." That night, Jennifer called the number on the card. "I accept your offer," she said when Richard answered. "But I have conditions." "I'm listening." "I want to visit my family on weekends. My son and my mother need me." "Acceptable. Anything else?" "I want everything in writing, a formal contract with lawyers." "Fair. Meet me tomorrow at the office. The address is on the card." Jennifer hung up with trembling hands. She had just made the hardest decision of her life. On Sunday, she gathered the family in the small living room. Michael put his phone down, sensing the gravity of the moment. Mrs. Carroll made an effort to sit up straight. "I got a new job," Jennifer began, choosing her words carefully. "As a companion to an elderly lady. The pay is very good, but I'll need to live at work during the week." "How much?" Michael asked, ever practical. "Enough to pay for Grandma's transplant and your college." The silence was heavy. Mrs. Carroll was the first to speak. "Honey, what aren't you telling us?" Jennifer swallowed hard. She couldn't lie to them completely. "The lady has Alzheimer's. She thinks I'm her childhood friend. Her son wants me to keep her company, keep her happy." "You're going to pretend to be someone else?" Michael asked, incredulous. I'll do whatever it takes for you," Jennifer replied firmly. "It's just 1 year." The argument stretched into the afternoon. Michael was furious, calling it humiliating. Mrs. Carroll wept, torn between need and pride. But in the end, reality won out. They needed that money. Monday came too quickly. Jennifer put on her best outfit, a black skirt and white blouse she wore to interviews, and took 2 buses to the business district where Montgomery Builders was located. The mirrored building reflected a cloudless blue sky, and she had to take a deep breath before entering. The receptionist was expecting her. She was led to the top floor where Richard kept his office. The view of Atlanta stretched across the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Jennifer, thank you for coming," he said, standing as he saw her. "This is Dr. William, my attorney." He prepared the contract. The next 2 hours were spent reviewing clauses and discussing details. Jennifer insisted that a portion be paid up front to start her mother's treatment. Richard agreed without hesitation. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked when they were alone. "I don't want you to feel pressured." "I'm sure," Jennifer lied. She was certain of nothing except her love for her family. "Then we'll start tomorrow. Her car will pick you up at 8 in the morning." Jennifer left the building with a check for $500,000 and the weight of the world on her shoulders. She stopped by the bank, opened an account, and began making arrangements. In 24 hours, her life would change completely. The goodbye on Tuesday morning was painful. Michael hugged her tightly, making her promise to quit if it became too much. Mrs. Carroll kissed her hands, blessing her through tears. Jennifer got into the black car with a broken heart. The Montgomery mansion was in Buckhead, one of the city's most upscale neighborhoods. Perfectly manicured gardens surrounded the modern structure, and Jennifer had to remind herself to breathe. A housekeeper named Susan greeted her. "Welcome. I'll show you your room and explain the household routine." The room was larger than the living room of her own home. Shades of blue and white created a serene atmosphere, and the view overlooked the Blue Ridge Mountains. Jennifer placed her small suitcase on the king-sized bed, feeling like an imposter. Mrs. Eleanor usually wakes at 8, Susan explained. She has breakfast at 9, always expecting Margaret. That's where you come in. The key is not to contradict her, to enter her world. What if she realizes I'm not who she thinks I am? It's happened before with others. She gets agitated, sometimes aggressive. That's why Mr. Richard is so hopeful about you. She truly believes you're her friend. Jennifer was introduced to the rest of the staff. Barbara, the cook, Mr. Anthony, the driver, Rose, the daytime nurse, and Charles, the security guard. They all treated her with a mix of curiosity and compassion. At 9 sharp, she was led to the sunroom where Mrs. Eleanor was having breakfast. The woman looked impeccable, wearing a beige linen set, her hair in an elegant bun. When she saw Jennifer, her face lit up. "Margaret, I thought you weren't coming today," she exclaimed, struggling to stand. Jennifer forced a smile and stepped closer. "Of course I came, Eleanor. How could I miss our breakfast? Sit, sit. Barbara made that cornbread cake you love." And so the charade began. Jennifer sat at the table set with fine china and silverware, pretending to be someone who had died before she was born. Mrs. Eleanor chatted about people and events from 40 years ago as if they were yesterday. "Remember when we went to the club dance? You danced all night with that young man. What was his name again?" Jennifer improvised vague answers, guided by Mrs. Eleanor's reactions. The morning passed in a surreal haze of borrowed memories and forced laughter. When the nurse came to take Mrs. Eleanor for her rest, Jennifer was exhausted. Richard appeared at lunchtime. "How did it go?" "She seems happy," Jennifer replied, pushing food around her plate without appetite. "It's more than we've managed in months, thank you." "Don't thank me, we're making a deal." The cold tone seemed to surprise him, but he just nodded. Jennifer needed to keep emotional distance. It was the only way to survive that year. The days settled into a routine. Breakfast with Mrs. Eleanor, listening to stories from the past. Lunch together, pretending to remember recipes she'd never tasted. Afternoons spent looking through photo albums, Jennifer memorizing faces and names to make the fantasy more convincing. But the nights were the worst. Alone in that luxurious bedroom, she cried from homesickness. She'd call Michael, who'd tell her about school, his friends, the small daily victories she was missing. Mrs. Carroll always asked if she was okay, and Jennifer always lied. On her first weekend back home, everything felt strange. Her humble house, which had always been her refuge, now seemed cramped and uncomfortable. She caught herself comparing the simple food to the elaborate dishes Barbara made, and she hated herself for it. "You've changed," Michael observed on Saturday night. "It's just your imagination," Jennifer avoided his gaze. "No, it's not. You seem distant." Jennifer hugged her son, promising herself she wouldn't let that false life contaminate the real one. But the lines were already blurring. By the second week, Mrs. Eleanor had an episode. Jennifer walked into the sunroom for their usual coffee and found the woman crying, staring at a photo. "Margaret died," she sobbed. "I went to her funeral. Why am I waiting for someone who's gone?" The moment of clarity was devastating. Jennifer didn't know what to do. Rose, the nurse, appeared quickly. "It happens sometimes," she whispered. "Talk to her. Try to calm her down." Jennifer knelt beside Mrs. Eleanor, holding her hands. "It's okay. I'm here." "But you're not her. Margaret had a mole on her neck. You don't." The specific detail made Jennifer freeze. How could she keep lying to someone who, even sick, noticed the differences? "You're right," Jennifer decided to be partially honest. "I'm not the Margaret from before, but I'm here now. I can be your friend now." Mrs. Eleanor studied her for a long moment. Then something shifted in her gaze as if a curtain had fallen. "Margaret, I'm so glad you're here. I was worried." The abrupt change left Jennifer dizzy. It was like watching someone change channels inside their own mind. She kept up the act, but something had changed. The lie weighed heavier. Richard noticed the difference. "Are you okay? Susan said my mother had an episode." She knows, Jennifer answered bluntly. Sometimes she knows I'm a fraud. But she accepts the illusion, that's what matters. For who? For her or for your conscience? Richard recoiled as if he'd been slapped. You think this is easy for me? Watching my mother slip away a little. More each day? No. Jennifer softened her tone. I know it's not. I'm sorry. She was a brilliant woman, he continued, staring out the window. A lawyer, a feminist before it was fashionable. Raised 2 kids alone after my father left us. Now she lives in a world where it's still 1985 and her best friend is alive. Jennifer felt his pain, recognized the desperation of watching someone you love disappear bit by bit. It was the same thing she felt seeing her own mother fade. I'll keep going, she promised. Just give me time to adjust. Weeks turned into months. Jennifer became an expert in Margaret's life. She knew she loved yellow roses, played the piano, had a forbidden affair with a married man. Intimate details of a life she hadn't lived, but now performed daily. The money started making a difference. Mrs. Carroll began private treatment, with real chances of finding a compatible donor. Michael got into an elite prep school, his eyes shining with the possibility of pursuing his dream of becoming a doctor. But the price Jennifer paid was high. She started dreaming of Margaret's memories, waking up confused about which life was real. She caught herself responding to the wrong name, using expressions Mrs. Eleanor would say. One Thursday afternoon, 3 months after starting, Jennifer found something that would change everything. She was helping Mrs. Eleanor organize old photos when a letter fell out of an album. Dearest Eleanor, began the elegant feminine handwriting, I need to tell you the truth about Richard. What are you doing? Richard's tense voice sounded behind her. Jennifer turned, the letter still in her hands. I was helping your mother with the photos. He stepped forward, trying to grab the letter, but Jennifer was quicker, stepping back. Give me that, he demanded. What's in this letter that you don't want me to see? It's private. None of your business. Everything involving your mother is my business now. Or have you forgotten I spend more time with her than you do? The jab was low but effective. Richard recoiled, his mask of control slipping. You don't understand, he murmured. Then explain it to me. Mrs. Eleanor chose that moment to wake from her nap. What are you doing with my things? Nothing, Mom. Richard forced a smile. Jennifer was helping organize. Margaret is always so careful with my things. Mrs. Eleanor smiled at Jennifer. Isn't that right, dear? Of course, Eleanor. Jennifer discreetly tucked the letter away. Shall we have some tea? She guided Mrs. Eleanor to the kitchen, leaving Richard alone in the room. The letter burned in her pocket, but she would wait for the right moment to read it. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now continuing. That night, locked in her room, Jennifer finally read the letter. Its contents left her breathless. Dearest Eleanor, I must tell you the truth about Richard before it's too late. The boy you're raising as your son is not Benjamin's child. I know you suspected his infidelities, but you never knew one of them resulted in Richard. His real mother died in childbirth, and Benjamin brought the baby home, making you believe it was yours after that difficult pregnancy. I've kept this secret for years, but my conscience won't let me leave without you knowing the truth. Richard isn't to blame for his father's sins, but you deserve to know. With love, Margaret. Jennifer reread the letter 3 times, trying to process the information. Richard wasn't Mrs. Eleanor's biological son. She raised him believing he was hers, while he was the product of her husband's betrayal. Now she understood Richard's urgency in keeping his mother happy, in preserving her memories. The guilt of a secret he'd likely discovered and never revealed. But what to do with this information? Jennifer put the letter away, deciding to think carefully about her next steps. The next day, she watched Richard with new eyes during the weekly dinner he insisted on having with his mother. His devotion took on new meaning. Every affectionate gesture seemed to carry the weight of a lifetime of lies. Mom, remember when you taught me to ride a bike? He asked, holding her. Handy, of course. You fell so many times, but you never gave up. Always my stubborn boy. Richard's smile was genuine, but Jennifer now saw the pain behind it. Being loved by someone who didn't know the truth about you was its own kind of prison. After dinner, when Mrs. Eleanor went to bed, Jennifer confronted Richard in the garden. I read the letter. He stopped walking, his shoulders tense. I figured. How long have you known? I found out when she was diagnosed. I was looking for old medical records and found blood tests. The blood types didn't match. And you never told her? Richard turned, his eyes wet. Tell her what, that her whole life was a lie? That the man she loved betrayed her unforgivably? That the son she raised with so much love isn't hers? But she loves you for real, Jennifer observed. Being a mother isn't just about blood. I know. But how can I look her in the eyes and keep lying? Jennifer understood. It was exactly how she felt every day pretending to be Margaret. That's why you want so badly to keep her happy. It's your way of apologizing for a sin you didn't commit. She gave me everything. Richard wiped away a stubborn tear. Love, education, values. How can I let her go believing a lie? But it's not a lie. Jennifer touched his arm gently. She's your mother in every way that matters. Her love for you is real. Just like hers for you, he replied. Even if you're Margaret. The parallel didn't escape either of them. Both trapped in lies born of love. What do we do now? Jennifer asked. We keep going, Richard answered. We give her the best possible last year's. It's all we can do. The dynamic between them shifted after that conversation. The initial hostility gave way to mutual understanding. Both were actors in a play with one goal, the happiness of a woman who deserved more than life had given her. Jennifer began to see Richard beyond the cold businessman. She discovered he spent late nights researching Alzheimer's, secretly funded studies on the disease, and kept every drawing, every note his mother had ever given him. One rainy afternoon, Mrs. Eleanor had another moment of clarity, but this time was different. You're not Margaret, she said calmly to Jennifer. But you're kind like she was. Jennifer held her breath. Ma'am, it's all right, Mrs. Eleanor smiled. I know Richard is doing this out of love. He's always been a good boy. You've always known. Sometimes I know, sometimes I forget. It's like living between two worlds. But when you're here, the world where Margaret still lives is happier. Don't you feel deceived? Dear, when you reach my age and condition, you realize some lies are kinder than truths. Let Richard believe he's protecting me. It's his way of showing love. The wisdom amid illness moved Jennifer deeply. Mrs. Eleanor understood more than anyone realized. I'll keep being Margaret for you, Jennifer promised. I know. You have a good heart. I see how you care for me. But I also see the longing for your family in your eyes. How a mother recognizes a mother. Mrs. Eleanor winked. Now come, let's have tea before I forget who you are again. And so they did. Minutes later, Mrs. Eleanor called her Margaret again, and the moment of clarity passed like a breeze. But Jennifer now carried the added weight of knowing that sometimes Mrs. Eleanor chose to accept the illusion. The 4th month brought changes. Mrs. Carroll found a compatible donor. The surgery was scheduled, and Jennifer had to negotiate with Richard to be with her mother. Of course you should go, he agreed immediately. Family comes first. But your mother, she'll understand, or rather, we'll create a story she'll accept. Margaret went to visit relatives, something like that. His generosity surprised her. Jennifer was growing used to seeing new sides of Richard every week. Mrs. Carroll's surgery was a success. Jennifer spent a week at the hospital, torn between joy at her mother's recovery and guilt for leaving Mrs. Eleanor. Susan sent messages saying the lady kept asking for Margaret constantly. Go, Mrs. Carroll said on the 5th day. I know you're worried about your work. You're more important. Sweetheart, you've made a huge sacrifice for us. I won't let you lose everything now. Go take care of the other mother, who needs you. Mrs. Carroll's words echoed on the way back to the mansion. The other mother. Was that what Mrs. Eleanor had become? When she arrived, the house was in chaos. Mrs. Eleanor had had a severe episode, refusing to eat or leave her room. She only wants Margaret, Rose explained, exhausted. Jennifer rushed upstairs. She found Mrs. Eleanor curled up, in bed, clutching an old photo. Eleanor, she called softly. It's me, Margaret. The woman turned. her face streaked with tears. "You abandoned me. How could you disappear like that?" "Forgive me." Jennifer sat on the bed, embracing her. "I'm here now. I won't leave again." "Promise?" The childish voice broke Jennifer's heart. "I promise," she lied, knowing she'd have to leave for good in 8 months. The routine resumed, but something fundamental had changed. Jennifer was no longer just playing a role. She genuinely cared for Mrs. Eleanor, worrying about her well-being beyond contractual obligations. Richard noticed the shift. "You're different with her." "Your mother is easy to love," Jennifer admitted. "Be careful," he warned gently. "It'll hurt when you have to leave." "It already does," she confessed. They stood in silence, watching. Mrs. Eleanor watered the roses in the garden, humming an old tune. The scene held a melancholy beauty, like a painting you know will soon be put away. By the 6th month, Michael began questioning his mother's job more intensely. "I looked into the Montgomery family," he said one Saturday. "They're really rich. What exactly do you do there?" "I told you I take care of his mother." "But why do they pay so much? Private nurses don't make even 1/10 of that." Jennifer sighed. Michael was growing up, becoming too sharp for simple lies. "It's complicated, son. I'm 16, I'm not a kid anymore. Are you doing something illegal?" "No!" Jennifer held his hands. "Nothing illegal, just morally ambiguous." "Mom, you're scaring me." Jennifer made a decision. She told him the truth, or at least a version of it. About Mrs. Eleanor, about pretending to be her dead friend, about the money she was saving for his grandmother and securing his future. Michael listened silently, processing. "You're selling your identity." "I'm selling my time and my acting." "It's no different from being an actress." "It's completely different," he countered. "Actresses don't live the role 24/7. You're losing yourself in this lie." The accusation stung because it was partly true. Jennifer was changing, adapting to Mrs. Eleanor's world in ways she hadn't foreseen. "It's temporary," she insisted. 6 more months, and it's over." "And then? You'll just abandon this lady who thinks you're her best friend?" Jennifer had no answer. It was the question that haunted her every night. Back at the mansion, she found Richard in the office, surrounded by papers. "Trouble?" she asked. "A stalled construction project, suppliers threatening lawsuits." He rubbed his temples. "Sometimes I forget I have a company to run. Can I help with anything?" He gave a tired smile. "Unless you know about construction." "I know about organization. I was a secretary before the restaurant." "Really?" Jennifer nodded. For 2 hours, she helped Richard sort documents, make spreadsheets, call suppliers. It was strangely comforting to use skills that didn't involve pretending. "You're full of surprises," he remarked when they finished. "Everyone has layers," Jennifer replied. "Even your mother must have secrets we can't imagine." As if summoned, Mrs. Eleanor appeared at the door. "What are you two doing locked in here? Margaret, come, it's time for the soap opera." Jennifer stood, but Richard held her arm. "Thank you for everything." The touch was brief, but loaded with meaning. Jennifer realized with a jolt that their professional relationship was evolving into something undefined and dangerous. The following weeks were marked by unspoken tension. Richard started dining at home more often, always finding excuses to talk to Jennifer. Discussions about Mrs. Eleanor turned into conversations about life, dreams, regrets. "Why did you never marry?" Jennifer asked one night after Mrs. Eleanor had gone to sleep. "I've never met anyone who understood my priorities. My mother always came first. And now?" "Now," he looked at her meaningfully. "Now it's too late to change." Jennifer averted her gaze, her heart racing. This couldn't happen. She was there for the money. She had a real life waiting. Any feelings beyond professionalism would be fair betrayal to everyone involved. But the heart rarely listens to reason. Jennifer caught herself fixing her hair before dinners, choosing outfits she knew he'd notice. They were small gestures, almost unconscious, but they revealed an inconvenient truth. Mrs. Eleanor, in her moments of clarity, saw everything. "Richard likes you," she said one day over tea. "We're just friends," Jennifer stammered. "Dear, I may be sick, but I'm not blind. I see how he looks at you, How you blush when he enters the room. It's complicated. Love always is. Mrs. Eleanor held her hand. But it's also rare. Don't waste it out of fear. You wouldn't mind. Why would I mind? You make my son smile in a way I haven't seen in years. And you deserve happiness too, whether you're Margaret or Jennifer. The mix-up of names, was it deliberate or accidental? Jennifer would never know. But the implicit blessing shook her carefully built defenses. That night she found Richard in the garden, gazing at the stars. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Thinking about the future. What happens when the year is over?" "I leave. Your mother forgets I existed. Life goes on." "Just like that?" "It has to be." Richard turned to face her. "What if I don't want you to leave?" "Richard, I know," he interrupted. "I know it started as a business arrangement, but you can't deny something's changed." "I can't afford to feel—" Jennifer took a step back. "I have a family, a real life." "And I'm not real? You're my employer." "Your mother is my patient. All of this," she gestured around, "is temporary." Richard nodded, defeated. "You're right. Forgive me for complicating things." He walked inside, leaving Jennifer alone with the stars and the weight of unspoken words. She knew she was right to keep her distance, but why did it hurt so much? The 7th month brought a new crisis. Mrs. Eleanor began confusing not just time, but people too. She called Richard Benjamin, her late husband. She asked for people who'd been dead for decades. And most unsettling, she started failing to recognize Jennifer on some days. "Who are you?" she asked one morning, recoiling as Jennifer entered the room. "I'm Margaret, your friend. Margaret died. I went to her funeral." The cruel clarity came at the worst moments. Jennifer tried every technique Rose had taught her, but nothing worked. Mrs. Eleanor screamed until she was hoarse, accusing everyone of trying to deceive her. Richard rushed home from the office. "Mom, it's me, your son. My son is a boy, you're too old." The blow was visible on his face. Jennifer instinctively took his hand, offering silent support. Together, they waited out the storm until Mrs. Eleanor fell asleep exhausted. "It's getting worse," Richard murmured in the hallway. "I'm so sorry. The doctor said we might have a few more years, but they'll be like this. Less of her, more of the disease." "What do you want to do?" "I want my mother back." His voice broke. "I want to tell her about my life, ask for advice, hear her stories without wondering if they're real or made up." Jennifer hugged him without thinking. Richard buried his face in her shoulder, crying as he hadn't allowed himself in years. She stroked his hair, murmuring words of comfort, temporarily forgetting all professional boundaries. When they pulled apart, both knew something had irrevocably changed. "Jennifer," he began. "No," she interrupted. "Please don't say anything that makes this harder." But the unspoken hung between them like a promise or a threat. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, the following days were strange. Mrs. Eleanor alternated between recognizing Jennifer and treating her like a stranger. The inconsistency was exhausting for everyone, but especially for Jennifer, who never knew which role to play. On a particularly difficult afternoon, after Mrs. Eleanor accused her of stealing jewelry, which never existed, Jennifer fled to the garden. She found refuge among the rose bushes, letting her tears fall freely. That's how Michael found her. He had convinced Susan to let him in for a surprise visit. "Mom," Jennifer quickly wiped her face. "Michael, what are you doing here?" "I came to see where you've been spending so much time." "Mom, you're crying." "I'm fine, it's just been a hard day." Michael hugged her. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way." "There are only 5 months left, Jennifer." Try to smile. We're already past the halfway point. But at what cost? You're wasting away here. Don't be dramatic. "Mom, when was the last time you really laughed? Did something for yourself?" Jennifer didn't have an answer. The days had become a succession of performances and crises, with no room for the real woman behind the act. "I'll be fine," she insisted. "Seeing you and your grandmother well is worth any sacrifice." Michael was about to respond when Richard appeared. "Jennifer, my mother is—" "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you had company. This is my son, Michael." Jennifer made the introductions. "Michael, this is Mr. Montgomery." The two sized each other up. Michael saw the man who was changing his mother. Richard saw the young man Jennifer was sacrificing everything to protect. "Nice to meet you, Michael. Your mother talks about you a lot." "She talks about you too," Michael replied with a hint of hostility. The awkward silence was broken by Susan. "Mrs. Eleanor is awake and calm. She's asking for Margaret." Jennifer sighed. "I'll be right there. Michael, wait for me here." She hurried inside, leaving the two men alone. "She's a remarkable woman," Richard said after a moment. "I know," Michael crossed his arms. "That's why I don't want to see her destroyed by whatever this is. I would never hurt your mother. You already are. Every time she has to pretend to be someone else, she loses a piece of herself." Richard had no answer. The boy was right. Inside the house, Jennifer found Mrs. Eleanor flipping through a photo album. "Margaret, come look, I found pictures from our picnic at Piedmont Park." Jennifer sat down, slipping back into her role. But as she listened to the stories, her mind was in the garden, where her real son waited for his real mother, not the actress she had become. Dinner was tense. Richard insisted Michael stay, creating an odd dynamic at the table. Fortunately, Mrs. Eleanor was having one of her better days, charming Michael with stories from her youth. "Oh, your mother is lovely," Mrs. Eleanor told Michael. "We've been friends for so many years." Michael gave Jennifer a pained look while she kept her smile fixed. The lie burned brighter in front of her son. "She really is special, Michael." "Agreed," holding his mother's hand under the table. After dinner, Richard offered to drive Michael home. "I'll come too," Jennifer decided. "Mrs. Eleanor is already asleep." In the car, the silence was heavy. Michael in the back seat watched the interaction, or lack thereof, between Jennifer and Richard. The tension was palpable. "Thanks for the ride," Michael said flatly when they arrived. "Michael." Jennifer grabbed his arm. "Don't be like this. How do you want me to be? Watching you fall for the man who's paying you to pretend?" "Michael," Jennifer flushed. "It's not like that." "No? Then look me in the eye and tell me you don't feel anything for him." Jennifer opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Michael shook his head, disappointed, and went inside. "I'm sorry," Richard said on the way back. "I didn't mean to cause trouble with your son." "He's just worried," Jennifer said, staring out the window. "And he's not entirely wrong." "About what?" Jennifer turned to face him. "Don't pretend. You don't know. Don't make things more complicated. What if I want to complicate them?" "Then you're selfish," she replied sharply. "Isn't one lie enough? Do you want to create another?" The rest of the ride was silent, but when they reached the mansion, Richard grabbed her hand before she could step out of the car. "What I feel isn't a lie. It's the only truth in this whole mess." Jennifer pulled her hand away. Inconvenient truths are still inconvenient. She walked inside without looking back, her heart in pieces. How had she let things get to this point? The following days were an uncomfortable dance of avoidance. Jennifer focused on Mrs. Eleanor, Richard on work. But in a house, no matter how big, it was impossible not to bump into each other. The breaking point came on a stormy night. Mrs. Eleanor had a night terror, screaming for dead people. Jennifer and Rose tried to calm her for hours with no success. "Call my son," Mrs. Eleanor shrieked. "Benjamin! Benjamin!" Richard appeared, disheveled, from sleep. "Mom, it's me, Richard." "You're not my son. My son is a baby. What have you done with my baby?" The pain on Richard's face was unbearable. Jennifer acted on instinct, spinning an elaborate story about the baby being safe, asleep in the nursery. Miraculously, it worked. Mrs. Eleanor calmed down, allowing them to give her medication. By the time she finally slept, it was nearly 4 in the morning. Rose went to rest, leaving Jennifer and Richard in the dark room, listening to Mrs. Eleanor's now peaceful breathing. "She doesn't recognize me anymore," he murmured. "I'm a stranger to my own mother." "She loves you," Jennifer comforted. "Even when she doesn't remember, the love is still there." "How do you know?" "Because I see how she calms at the sound of your voice, even when she doesn't know you." The heart remembers what the mind forgets. Richard looked at her for a long moment. You always know what to say. Not always, she said with a sad smile. Sometimes I have no words at all. Like now? Like now. They were too close. Jennifer could feel his warmth, see the details of his tired face. It would be so easy to give in, to seek comfort in each other. Jennifer. Good night, Richard. She left before her last resistance crumbled, but lying in bed she couldn't sleep. The storm outside echoed the turmoil in her chest. In the 8th month, Mrs. Carroll was given a full discharge. The new kidney worked perfectly, and she was healthier than she'd been in years. Jennifer cried with joy at the news. I want to meet this family that's been so good to you, Mrs. Carroll said during a visit. Mom, it's not appropriate. Nonsense, you spend more time there than here. I want to thank them in person. Jennifer tried to dissuade her, but Mrs. Carroll was stubborn when healthy. So on a sunny Sunday, mother and son went to lunch at the Montgomery mansion. Mrs. Eleanor's reaction was surprising. Margaret, you brought your family, how wonderful. She hugged Mrs. Carroll like an old friend, and Jennifer had to swallow the lump in her throat, her real mother being welcomed by someone who called her by a fake name. Richard was the perfect host, showing them around the house, making polite conversation. But Jennifer noticed the tension in his shoulders, the care he took with his words. At lunch, Mrs. Eleanor was radiant, telling stories to a larger audience. Mrs. Carroll listened with genuine interest, giving Jennifer knowing glances. Your daughter is a treasure, Mrs. Eleanor told Mrs. Carroll. I don't know what I'd do without my Margaret. She's always been special, Mrs. Carroll agreed, holding Jennifer's hand. It was Michael who shattered the spell. Grandma Eleanor, do you remember my mother's real name? The silence was deafening. Jennifer froze. Richard closed his eyes. Mrs. Eleanor tilted her head, confused. Margaret, of course, why would you ask such a thing? Just curious, Michael forced a smile. The rest of lunch was tense. When they said goodbye, Mrs. Carroll hugged Jennifer tightly. Now I understand, she whispered. It's more than just a job, isn't it? It's complicated, Mom. Life always is, dear. But be careful not to lose yourself so much in the role that you forget who you really are. In the car on the way back, Michael was silent. Jennifer waited for the outburst, but he only said, She's a good person. She deserves the truth. The truth would destroy her. Lies destroy too, Mom, just more slowly. The teenage wisdom stung because it was accurate. Jennifer was being destroyed little by little, lie after lie, day after day. That night she found Richard in the library, drinking brandy alone. I'm sorry about lunch, she began. Your son is right, he interrupted. This is all an elaborate farce. We're doing our best in an impossible situation. Are we? He stared at her. Or are we just delaying the inevitable? What are you suggesting? Telling the truth, your mother wouldn't survive it. And you? Are you surviving? Jennifer didn't answer. The truth was, every day was getting harder. The lines between Jennifer and Margaret were so blurred that sometimes she didn't know where one ended and the other began. Maybe we should terminate the contract, Richard suggested. I'll pay the full amount and you can go back to your life. And Mrs. Eleanor? She'll survive. Or not, but at least you'll be free. I can't abandon her like that. Can't or won't. The question hung between them. Jennifer realized she didn't know the answer. What was keeping her here? The money, the commitment, Mrs. Eleanor, or... Good night, Richard. Running away was becoming a habit, but it was easier than facing uncomfortable truths. The 9th month began with a surprise. Richard's brother, Robert, returned from Europe. Jennifer had only heard about him, the prodigal son who left the family to find himself in London. Jennifer, this is my brother. Richard made the tense introductions. Robert was a younger, more relaxed version of Richard. Easy smile, natural charm, and eyes that seemed to see right through people. So you're the famous Margaret, he said, theatrically kissing her hand. Mom talks about you all the time. Ex-Margaret, Jennifer corrected uncomfortably. Of course. His smile said he understood more than he should. Robert's presence changed the household dynamic. He questioned everything, provoked Richard, and treated their mother's illness with a lightness that bordered on insensitivity. "Why keep up this charade?" he asked during dinner. "Mom doesn't even know who—" "We are half the time. She knows who Jennifer is," Richard defended. "Margaret," Robert corrected sarcastically. "Sorry, it's hard to keep up with the lies." Jennifer clenched her silverware. "If you have something to say, say it." "I just find it curious." Robert poured himself more wine. "My brother, always so upright, paying a woman to pretend. What would our father say?" "Our father has no right to judge anyone," Richard replied coldly. "True. After all, he was an expert in lies, too." Dinner ended in heavy silence. Jennifer helped Mrs. Eleanor upstairs, relieved to escape the tension. "Don't mind Robert," Mrs. Eleanor said suddenly. "He's always been jealous of Richard." "You're lucid," Jennifer observed, surprised. "Sometimes I am, and when I am, I see things clearly, like the fact that you love my son." Jennifer nearly stumbled. "Ma'am, and he loves you. Anyone can see it, except the two of you, apparently. It's complicated." "Nonsense. Love is simple. People are the ones who complicate it." Mrs. Eleanor kissed her forehead and went to bed, leaving Jennifer with turbulent thoughts. In the following weeks, Robert became a constant, unwelcome presence. He questioned Jennifer about her life, made insinuations about the arrangement, and provoked Richard at every opportunity. "You know what's funny?" he said one day, finding Jennifer in the garden. "You're more her daughter now than we ever were." "Don't say that." "Why?" "It's true. You spend more time with her, know her stories, her fears. We're just visitors in her life now. You're her children, that will never change." "Really?" Robert lit a cigarette. "Did Richard tell you our little family secret?" Jennifer kept her face neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do. Richard tells you everything now, like how he's not her blood." "Son, that doesn't matter." "Doesn't it? Then why does he keep it a secret? Why all this effort to keep her happy? Because he loves her? Or because he feels guilty?" Robert blew out smoke. "Guilty for existing, for being the product of betrayal, for being loved by someone he deceived his whole life." "He didn't deceive her. He had no choice. We always have a choice. He chose to keep lying. You chose to go along with it. I chose to run away. We all choose how to handle this family's lies." Jennifer stood to leave, but Robert grabbed her arm. "Be careful, Jennifer. This family has a habit of destroying good people." She pulled her arm free and walked away, but his words echoed. Would she just be another victim of the Montgomery's secrets? The 10th month brought autumn and a rapid decline in Mrs. Eleanor. Her moments of clarity grew rare, replaced by constant confusion that exhausted everyone. Jennifer was at her limit. Sleep was hard. Eating felt unnecessary. She functioned on autopilot, being Margaret without even thinking anymore. Richard was the first to notice. "You've lost weight." "I'm fine." "You're not." He held her face gently. "Look at you. What are we doing to you? I'm fulfilling my contract. At the cost of your health, your sanity?" He let her go. "I'll cancel the contract. You leave tomorrow." "No." The vehemence surprised them both. "Jennifer, you're destroying yourself. There are only 2 months left. I can handle it." "Why? The money isn't worth this." "It's not about money," she finally admitted. "Not anymore." "Then what is it about?" Jennifer looked at the house where Mrs. Eleanor was likely waiting for Margaret. She looked at the man who had shaken all her certainties. She looked at herself, lost between two identities. "I don't know anymore," she confessed. "I just know I can't abandon her." "Abandon—" She stopped before saying "you." Richard stepped closer. "Jennifer, please." She stepped back. 2 more months. Let me finish what I started. After that, I'll figure out what's left of me." He nodded, defeated. Both knew something would have to give soon. The question was what or who. The 11th month was marked by an unexpected visit. Richard's lawyer arrived with urgent documents about the company, but Jennifer recognized her in another way. She looked identical to a young Margaret in the photos. "This is Margaret Wilson, Eskemis," Richard introduced, tense. Jennifer almost laughed at the irony. Another Margaret, this time real, stepping into this web of lies. "Nice to meet you." The lawyer shook her hand. "Richard's told me a lot about you." During the meeting in the office, Jennifer couldn't focus on Mrs. Eleanor. The resemblance was unsettling. Was that why Richard had hired her? Did he have some fixation on his mother's dead friend? "You're quiet," Mrs. Eleanor observed during tea. "Sorry, distracted. Is it because of that woman? I saw you talking." "You saw?" "I saw Richard with her. She looked like someone, I can't remember who." The moment passed, the fog returning. But Jennifer was left with the uneasy feeling that there were more secrets in that house than she'd imagined. That night she confronted Richard, the lawyer. "Did you hire her because she looks like Margaret?" He seemed genuinely surprised. "What? No, she's the best in the field. I hadn't even noticed the resemblance." "Really? Same name, same looks?" "Jennifer, you're being paranoid. Not every Margaret in this world has something to do with my father's friend." Maybe he was right. Maybe she was so immersed in the role that she saw Margaret everywhere. But the doubt lingered. The truth came out unexpectedly. Jennifer was organizing Mrs. Eleanor's office when she found another bundle of letters, this time from Margaret to Eleanor. One in particular stood out. "Eleanor, my heart sister, I need to confess something terrible. I'm pregnant. The father is Benjamin. I know it's unforgivable, but it happened. I'm leaving, having this child far from here. Please forgive me someday. Always yours, Margaret." Jennifer dropped the letter as if it burned her. Margaret had an affair with Eleanor's husband? Had a child with him? The implications were enormous. Could it be that... "What are you doing?" Robert appeared at the door. Jennifer showed him the letter, unable to speak. Robert read it, his face turning pale. "My God," he murmured. "So it's true? You knew?" "I suspected. I always thought Richard looked more like old photos of Margaret than our father. We need to tell him." "No." Robert grabbed her arm. "It would destroy him, finding out not only that he's not Mom's son, but that he's the child of her best friend. He has a right to know." "A right?" Robert laughed bitterly. "In this family, the truth isn't a right. It's a weapon." They fell silent, the weight of the secret between them. Jennifer finally understood the complexity of the lies holding that family together. The following days were torture. Jennifer couldn't look at Richard without thinking of the letter. She couldn't pretend with Mrs. Eleanor knowing Margaret had betrayed her so deeply. "You're acting strange," Richard commented during dinner. "Just tired." She avoided his gaze. "Jennifer, if something's wrong, everything's fine." The lie came automatically. She was getting too good at it. But Robert, watching from the side, knew the truth, and Jennifer feared what he would do with it. The bomb exploded on a Friday night. Robert drank too much during dinner and started making insinuations. "You know, it's funny how life works," he swayed his wine glass. "Margaret died, but we have another Margaret here. Richard isn't Mom's son, but she loves him as if he were." "Robert," Richard warned. "What? Just philosophizing about truths and lies? Jennifer understands, don't you? After all, she lives a lie every day." "Enough," Richard stood up. "Does the truth bother you?" Robert also rose, unsteady. "How about this truth, then? You're Margaret's son." The silence was absolute. Jennifer closed her eyes. Richard turned pale. "You're drunk," he finally said. "I am. But I'm not lying." Robert threw the letter on the table. "Read it. Your dear mother had an affair with our father. You're the fruit of that forbidden love." Richard picked up the letter with trembling hands. As he read, his face went through a range of emotions: shock, denial, horror, understanding. "No," he murmured, "it can't be." "But it is." Robert seemed almost satisfied. "You're not Eleanor's son. You're the child of the woman she loved most. The woman who betrayed her." Richard ran out. Jennifer followed him, finding him in the garden, vomiting among the rose bushes. "Richard, you knew?" he asked without looking at her. "I found out this week. I was going to tell you." "When?" "After I fell completely in love with you. After we built more lies." "It's not like that." "No." He finally faced her, eyes red. "Then what is it?" "My whole life is a lie. The woman I love is paid to pretend, and now I find out I'm the traitor's son, not the saint's. Mrs. Eleanor is your mother. Jennifer insisted, in every way that matters. Stop, he raised his hand. Stop trying to fix everything. Some things can't be fixed. He walked away, leaving Jennifer alone in the dark garden. The house of cards was finally collapsing. The consequences were immediate. Richard disappeared for 3 days. Robert, regretful but unable to undo the damage, returned to Europe. Jennifer was left alone caring for Mrs. Eleanor, who sensed the tension. "Where's my boy?" she kept asking. "He'll be back soon," Jennifer lied, praying it was true. On the 3rd day, Richard returned. Disheveled, unshaven, his eyes empty. Went straight to his mother's room. Jennifer overheard part of the conversation from the hallway. Richard crying, apologizing for sins he didn't commit. Mrs. Eleanor, in a rare moment of clarity, comforting him. "You're my son," she said firmly. "It doesn't matter how you came to me, you're my son." When he came out, Jennifer was waiting. "We need to talk," he said. They went to the study. Richard poured whiskey for both of them, his hands still trembling. Slightly. "I took a DNA test," he began. "It confirms everything. Margaret was my birth mother. I'm sorry. You know what's worse? Part of me always knew. I always felt out of place, different from Robert. Now I know why. That doesn't change who you are, doesn't it?" He downed the whiskey in one gulp. "All my life I tried to be worthy of her love. I did everything to make up for I don't even know what. Now I find out I was making up for my real mother's betrayal. Mrs. Eleanor loves you. Please," he cut her off. "No more platitudes. I need to understand something." Jennifer waited. "You? Why did you stay? It's not about money anymore, that's clear. So why?" It was the question she'd avoided for months. But after so many truths had come out, honesty was owed. "At first it was for the money. My family needed it. I would have done anything. But then I met all of you. I saw a sick woman who just wanted her friend back. I saw a devoted son trying to give his mother peace, and I got lost." Lost? Lost between Jennifer and Margaret, between my real life and this one, between what was right and what felt right, and I fell in love. Silence stretched between them. "With who?" Richard finally asked. "With me or the life I represent?" "I don't know," Jennifer admitted. "Maybe both. Maybe neither. I just know I can't separate them anymore." Richard stood, walking to the window. "We're a disaster." "We are. My birth mother betrayed the woman who raised me. I paid someone to pretend to be her. I fell for the imposter. It's almost poetic." "Richard, you know what I realized these past 3 days?" He turned. "Maybe the truth is overrated. Mum, Eleanor, was more of a mother to me than Margaret ever was. You, pretending to be Margaret, brought her more joy than the real friend who betrayed her." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe some lies are worth more than cruel truths. Maybe love built on illusions is still love." Jennifer stepped closer to him. "Are you sure?" "I'm not sure of anything. I just know there are 6 weeks left on your contract, and I don't know what I'll do when you leave." "What if I don't?" The question hung between them. Richard touched her face, his thumb tracing her cheek. "You have a real life, a family who needs the real Jennifer. And you? Don't you need me? We need Margaret. I can be both. Can you? Or will you lose yourself completely?" Jennifer had no answer. The final 6 weeks stretched ahead like a sentence or a promise. "We'll see," she whispered. Richard kissed her. It was a desperate kiss, full of uncovered lies and unspoken truths. Jennifer kissed him back, knowing they were making everything even more complicated. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "This is a mistake," Jennifer said. "Probably. It's going to hurt in the end. It already hurts now." They stood embraced in silence, 2 castaways in a sea of secrets. Outside, autumn painted the leaves gold, indifferent to human dramas. The past weeks had passed in a strange haze. Jennifer and Richard danced around their feelings, close but never touching the open wound. Mrs. Eleanor was visibly worsening, her moments of recognition growing rarer. Michael noticed the change in Jennifer during his weekend visits. "You're different again." "Different how?" "Sad, but also, I don't know, resigned." Jennifer hugged her son. In a few weeks, she'd have to choose between two worlds. And either choice would leave scars. "Mom, what's going to happen when the year ends?" "I don't know," she admitted honestly. "Part of me wants to go back and pretend nothing happened. Another part wants to stay." "It's more complicated than that." "Because of him, Richard?" Jennifer nodded. "Do you love him?" "I think so, but how can I be sure? How do I separate what's real from what I've imagined for so long?" Michael held her hands. "Maybe you don't have to separate them. Maybe you're both now." Her son's simple wisdom caught her off guard. Maybe he was right. Maybe there was no more Jennifer without Margaret, or Margaret without Jennifer. Back at the mansion, she found Richard in Mrs. Eleanor's room. The elderly woman slept peacefully, and he simply watched over her. "She's at peace," Jennifer observed. "For now." The doctor said, "She likely won't make it past Christmas." 2 months remained. The timing was cruel. "I'll stay," Jennifer decided impulsively, "even after the contract until the end." Richard looked at her with a mix of gratitude and pain. "I can't ask that of you." "You're not asking, I'm offering." "And after?" "After, we'll see what's left." It was a vague promise, but all she could give. Richard accepted with a nod, turning back to watch over the woman who had chosen to be his mother. The 12th month arrived with cold winds and the certainty that the end was near. Jennifer divided herself between preparing Michael and Mrs. Carroll for her prolonged absence and caring for Mrs. Eleanor full-time. "It's the cycle of life," Mrs. Carroll mused. "We care for those in need, even if they're not our blood." "Do you understand?" "I understand you found purpose there and maybe love. I won't judge, dear, just don't forget who you are." But who was she? The question haunted her as she slipped into Margaret's role each morning. The clothes she chose, the way she styled her hair, even the perfume she wore, all calculated to maintain the illusion. One November morning, Mrs. Eleanor woke unusually lucid. "Jennifer?" she called, using the right name for the first time in months. Jennifer froze. "Ma'am?" "I know who you are. I always did, in a way. But thank you." "For what?" "For letting me say goodbye to my friend." "Hey, even if it's a lie, it was a gift." "Ma'am, take care of my boy," Mrs. Eleanor said, gripping her hand with surprising strength. "Richard needs someone who loves him for who he is, not what he represents." Shh. "I know you love each other. I see it in your looks, your gestures. Don't waste it on fear or convention." They were her last lucid words. Minutes later, Mrs. Eleanor called her Margaret again, but the blessing had been given. The final days of the contract were surreal. Jennifer organized papers, prepared to return the room, yet continued her routine with Mrs. Eleanor. Richard avoided talking about the end, focusing on the present. On the last official night of the contract, they shared a special dinner. Mrs. Eleanor was well enough to come down, dressed in her finest. "A toast," Richard proposed, "to family, in all its forms." "To family," Jennifer echoed, knowing that after midnight she'd no longer officially belong at that table. Mrs. Eleanor fell asleep early, exhausted. Jennifer tucked her in, kissing her forehead. "Sleep well, dear friend," she whispered. In the hallway, she found Richard waiting. "So, this is it?" he asked. "The contract ends at midnight, but I said I would stay, so not as an employee. If you stay, you stay as what?" That was the question they both avoided. Jennifer was no longer an employee, wasn't really Margaret, but she wasn't just Jennifer either. "As someone who loves you," she answered simply. Richard kissed her, and this time there was no desperation, only certainty. When the clock struck midnight, Jennifer didn't turn into a pumpkin. She stayed there in his arms, finally free to choose. "Stay," he asked. "Not because of a contract, not for money. Stay because you want to." "And my family?" "Bring them. The house is big. We can be a messy, extended family." "Have you lost your mind?" "Completely. But it's the best madness I've ever had." Jennifer laughed. imagining Michael and Mrs. Carroll in that mansion. It would be bizarre, unconventional, possibly disastrous. "Let's try," she agreed. The following weeks were full of adjustments. Michael resisted at first, but eventually gave in when he saw his mother genuinely happy. Mrs. Carroll adapted with the wisdom of someone who's seen a lot in life. "It's strange," she told Jennifer, "but love always is." Mrs. Eleanor welcomed the new residents with joyful confusion, calling Mrs. Carroll by the names of old friends and treating Michael like the grandson she never had. The house, always quiet and formal, came alive with voices and laughter. Richard watched the changes with fascination. This is how it should have always been. Messy and loud, Jennifer teased. Alive, real, imperfect, but ours. December arrived with the certainty that it would be Mrs. Eleanor's last Christmas. Jennifer put extra care into the decorations, determined to create precious memories. "Margaret always loved Christmas," Mrs. Eleanor remarked as she helped decorate. "The tree." "I love it too," Jennifer replied, and it wasn't a lie. On Christmas Eve, their strange patchwork family gathered. Michael played the guitar, Mrs. Carroll told stories, Richard held Jennifer's hand. Mrs. Eleanor, in her favorite chair, smiled with her eyes closed. "Everyone's here," she murmured. "All my family." It was the last thing she said. Mrs. Eleanor passed away in the early hours of Christmas morning, at peace, surrounded by true love disguised as kind lies. The funeral was quiet. Jennifer stood by Richard's side, no longer as an employee, but as part of the family. Robert returned, surprised by the changes. "You stayed," he observed. "I did." "As Jennifer or Margaret?" "As myself. Whoever that is now." Robert nodded, accepting it. The Montgomery family had always been built on secrets and half-truths. One more wouldn't make a difference. Months later, Jennifer found herself in the same restaurant where it all began. Jack nearly dropped his tray when he saw her. "Jennifer, I thought you'd vanished off the map." "In a way I did," she smiled. "But I'm back." "For good?" "No, just visiting the past." She sat at the table where Richard had made his proposal. So much had changed. She was no longer the desperate waitress, nor the fabricated Margaret. She was something new, forged, between truths and lies. Richard walked in, scanning the room for her. He smiled when he saw her at that particular table. "Nostalgia?" he asked, sitting down. "Reflection. It's been a year and a half. Feels like a lifetime." It was. Several lifetimes, really. They sat in comfortable silence. The waiter brought coffee without asking, recognizing old habits. "Do I regret it?" Jennifer asked, more to herself. "Regret what? Saying yes? No. Lying so much? Maybe. Staying? Never." Richard held her hand across the table. "Want to know something? I think Mom knew from the start. All the Eleanors, the sick one, the lucid one, the confused one, they all knew you weren't Margaret. Why do you think that? Because she loved you anyway. Or maybe because of it. You gave her something the real Margaret never could. Absolute loyalty. Jennifer considered it. Maybe he was right. Perhaps the whole family knew on some level that it was all an elaborate play where everyone played roles to protect one another. "Where are we going now?" she asked. "Home. Michael must be arriving from college. His mother is making that cake you love. We need to pick up your test results." "Tests?" Richard smiled. "You didn't think I didn't notice the morning sickness, did you?" Jennifer placed her hand on her still flat belly. Another life beginning, one more secret soon to be revealed. But this was a happy secret. "How will we tell them?" she asked. "The way our family does everything, with love, partial truth, and hope that it works out." They laughed together, two survivors of an impossible story. They stood up to leave, leaving the past at that table. On the way out, Jennifer looked back one last time. She could almost see her former self in a floral apron, taking orders and dreaming of a better life. She mentally waved at her, thanking her for being brave enough to embrace the madness. "Ready?" Richard asked. "Ready," Jennifer confirmed. They walked out hand in hand into the sunlight, leaving the restaurant and its memories behind. Ahead, an imperfect but real life awaited them. A family built on lies that became truths, truths that turned out to be lies, and love that survived both. In the car, Jennifer pulled a worn piece of paper from her pocket. The original contract, which she had kept for reasons she didn't fully understand. "What will you do with that?" Richard asked. "Keep it. To remember." "Remember what?" "That sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as absurd proposals. That 5 million bought much more than a year of my life." "What did it buy?" Jennifer smiled, tucking the paper away. "A chance to discover who I really am. And in the end, there's no price for that." They drove in comfortable silence, two people who had started as strangers bound by a lie and ended as a family united by the truth of the love they had built. At home, they were greeted by the smell of cake and the sound of Michael strumming his guitar. Mrs. Carroll waved from the kitchen, completely at ease in that mansion she had never imagined living in. "The family is complete," she announced. And it was. Strange, patched together, built on questionable foundations, but complete. Jennifer discreetly touched her belly. Soon, they would be even more. That night, while everyone slept, Jennifer went up to the room that had been Mrs. Eleanor's. They had kept it exactly as she left it, a silent memorial. On the dresser, a photo of a young Margaret smiled eternally. Jennifer gently touched the glass. "Thank you," she whispered, "for lending me your name, your story. I promise it was used with love." There was no answer, of course, but Jennifer felt a peace settle over her. The ghosts were resting. She went back to her room, the room she had shared with Richard for months. He was awake, waiting. "Everything okay?" he asked as she lay down. "Everything's perfect," Jennifer replied, "or as close to perfect as our mess allows." "It's a beautiful mess," he agreed, holding her. "The best mess," she murmured, closing her eyes. She fell asleep without masks, without roles to play. Just Jennifer, mother, daughter, lover, friend, all her versions finally at peace with one another. Outside, Atlanta slept under indifferent stars. But inside that house, an unlikely family dreamed together, proving that sometimes the best stories are the ones we write as we live them, one sincere lie at a time. The end of the story. And so we come to the end of this emotional journey. Do you think Jennifer made the right choice by staying? Can love blossom from the most unusual situations? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories. Until next time.